For much of history, strategy is described as a matter of will. Decisions made by leaders, choices shaped by belief, ambition, or fear. Maps are treated as background, terrain as a detail, geography as something to be overcome by planning and resolve. But there is a quieter contradiction that appears again and again. The idea that geography does not respond to intention at all, that it does not bend, it waits. Russia offers one of the clearest examples of this tension, not because of ideology or rulers or even armies, but because of space itself. Distance that does not compress, seasons that do not negotiate, land that absorbs movement without reflecting it back. This is not an examination of Russian politics or command structures. It is an inquiry into a recurring pattern. The way physical reality shapes behavior across centuries, regardless of who holds authority at any given moment. The way geography becomes a form of memory, repeating its influence long after names and borders change. To understand this pattern, it helps to start with what remains consistent. Russia is vast in a way that resists abstraction. On a map, it appears manageable. Lines connect cities, routes look direct. But on the ground, space behaves differently. Travel does not scale evenly. Supply does not arrive at the same pace it is requested. Distance stretches time. This has always been true. From early settlement, movement across the Eurasian plain followed rivers rather than roads. Water was predictable, land was not. Forests, marshes, and open steppe offered few natural boundaries but many delays. What could not be seen could not be easily controlled. What could not be controlled was avoided. Over time, a pattern formed. Expansion did not proceed through sharp edges, but through gradual absorption. Settlements followed resources. Frontiers blurred rather than hardened. Borders existed, but they were porous, shifting, often undefined. This environment rewarded patience over precision, depth over clarity, withdrawal over confrontation. Invasions from the West encountered this pattern repeatedly. Armies crossed into territory that did not present immediate resistance. Cities appeared abandoned. Roads led forward without opposition. The absence felt temporary, almost inviting. But absence is not emptiness. As forces moved inward, distance accumulated. The land did not obstruct directly. It delayed. Time stretched. Familiar rhythms dissolved. What had worked elsewhere no longer produced the same outcomes. Movement continued, but meaning thinned. Winter is often cited as the decisive factor, but winter is not the cause. It is a reminder. Cold arrives every year. It is predictable. What changes is exposure. Geography does not surprise, it reveals. This pattern did not belong to one era. It repeated because the conditions repeated. In the Mongol period, mobility succeeded precisely because it aligned with the land's logic. Movement was fluid, engagement was selective, supply was adaptive. Where fixed systems struggled, flexible ones persisted. Centuries later, the same terrain disrupted assumptions again. Campaigns entered with confidence shaped by other regions. They advanced, expecting response. They waited for confrontation that never arrived. The land did not offer resolution. It offered extension. What is striking is how often this pattern was recognized only afterward. Observers would note the distances, the climate, the lack of natural choke points. Yet recognition did not prevent repetition. This suggests something deeper than ignorance. It suggests a recurring human tendency to treat geography as a variable rather than a condition, as something that can be managed rather than something that defines limits. Ancient thinkers were often more cautious, not because they had better data, but because they accepted constraint more readily. Terrain was not neutral. It carried consequence. Certain lands favored certain behaviors, not because of culture alone, but because of rhythm. Plains invite movement but discourage permanence. Forests conceal but slow. Rivers connect while dividing. In Russia, these elements converge at scale. The result is a geography that resists decisive endings. Conflicts fade rather than conclude. Engagement stretches rather than resolves. Time becomes the dominant factor. This shapes perception. When outcomes take longer, certainty weakens. Plans extend beyond their assumptions. Decisions made early must survive conditions they did not anticipate. Over generations, this produces habits, not strategies in the formal sense, but tendencies. A preference for depth over exposure, for elasticity over fixation, for survival over resolution. These tendencies are not chosen, they emerge. The pattern echoes beyond conflict. Trade routes bend, settlements cluster inward. Infrastructure follows redundancy rather than efficiency. When one path fails, another absorbs the strain. Geography teaches through repetition. Each failure reinforces the same lesson. Space is not empty, it is active. Yet humans remain drawn to clarity, to plans that end cleanly, to maps that suggest simplicity. This creates friction. The desire for control meets a landscape that refuses to confirm it. That friction is not dramatic, it is slow, it accumulates. One of the quiet illusions of history is that adaptation is conscious, that societies look back, learn, and adjust deliberately. More often, adaptation is passive. Patterns persist because alternatives fail repeatedly. In Russia's case, geography rewarded endurance. Those who attempted speed without alignment exhausted themselves. Those who accepted delay remained. This does not mean geography determines outcomes absolutely. It shapes probability. It biases repetition. It narrows viable behaviors. What makes this unsettling is how little agency it appears to leave. If patterns emerge regardless of belief, where does intention fit? Ancient wisdom often approached this question indirectly. Rather than seeking mastery, it emphasized harmony, acting in accordance with conditions rather than against them, not as surrender, but as realism. Modern thinking tends to resist this. It favors intervention, correction, optimization, the belief that sufficient knowledge can overcome constraint. But Russia's geography has absorbed centuries of such attempts. It has not changed. The land remains wide, the distances remain long, the seasons remain indifferent. What changes is the language used to describe them. Sometimes geography is framed as an obstacle, sometimes as a shield, sometimes as an excuse. These interpretations vary. The pattern does not. This raises a more subtle question. If geography quietly shapes behavior over centuries, how many other forces do the same? How often do we mistake choice for inheritance? Decision for momentum? We like to imagine history as a series of turning points, moments where everything could have gone differently. But geography introduces continuity. It links outcomes across time without needing intention. This continuity does not eliminate responsibility, but it complicates it. The pattern seen in Russia is not unique. Deserts shape movement, islands shape isolation, mountains shape fragmentation. What makes Russia distinct is scale. The lesson is stretched across centuries so clearly that it becomes difficult to ignore. And yet, it is often ignored, perhaps because accepting it feels diminishing. It suggests limits to agency, boundaries to planning. It implies that not all problems yield to effort. Ancient traditions were less troubled by this. They accepted that some conditions must be worked within, not against. That wisdom involved recognition of what does not change. In this sense, geography becomes a teacher, not through instruction, but through consequence. It repeats the same lesson until it is absorbed or endured. Russia's strategy, if it can be called that, appears less like a design and more like an echo, a response shaped by terrain, distance, and time, rather than ideology. It persists because it fits. The unsettling part is how little conscious choice this seems to require, which leads to a quieter inward turn. How often do we attribute our own patterns to belief or preference when they may be shaped by conditions we rarely question? How many of our decisions feel deliberate, but are responses to constraints we have normalized? When repetition spans long enough, it stops feeling imposed. It starts to feel natural. Perhaps the most enduring influence is not the one that commands, but the one that remains constant. Not the force that acts, but the condition that never leaves. Geography does not argue. It does not persuade. It does not adapt to us. It waits. And in that waiting, it quietly shapes what is possible, what is repeated, and what is remembered. If you found meaning here, you're welcome to explore more on Timeless Questions, where we examine history not for answers, but for understanding.